Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Elan's Matchup Maximizer podcast, presented by Keeping Karlsson, a podcast where I, Elan Dubrovsky, help you to maximize the number of games you're going to get from good players in your next fantasy matchup to hopefully pull out the W. I've studied the schedule for all of you so that you don't need to. I'm here to make sure that you're going to have everything you need to know in order to stream in the right players. And the next matchup is a doozy over on Yahoo. It is a combined 2 weeks all in one. There's some games on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, like a sprinkling of games, and then a long all-star break all the way through Sunday, and then another kind of weird week from Monday to Sunday the following week, where every day is pretty light except for a very busy Saturday where 28 teams are playing. So you're going to really need to be on the ball if you're going to want to maximize and do well. So I've got the scoop for you here. And yeah, I think the number one strategy going into this crazy 2-week matchup is you're going to have to be very conservative with your ads. Like in the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Pager Fantasy League on Yahoo, we have only 4 ads per matchup. If it's a 2-week matchup, you still have only 4 ads. So don't blow them all in week 1 and then be left with nothing in week 2. The worst thing is to have used up all your ads and then to have an injury and you can't even replace that person. You think, oh, if only I didn't drop that person from before for that previous ad drop. So yeah, you got to definitely be careful. And the best is if you have any ads left from your current matchup, then you could just use that to get yourself prepared for the next week. So that's why I like to release this on Sunday morning for you. So yeah, let's get into it. So like I said, there is going to be a couple games on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, long break, and then a bunch of games from Monday to Sunday of the next week. There are no teams that both have a game between Monday and Wednesday and also a good schedule in the following week. So you're going to kind of have to choose your streamer. Like you could either take a player that has like 4 games. 4 is the most games you can get. There's actually only 2 teams that have 4 light day games. And I'll just mention them right now. It's Anaheim and Seattle. So you can take an Anaheim or Seattle player right now, be guaranteed 4 games in the matchup, which is more than any other player. But you have to wait all the way until next Monday to get your first game. That's right, a week from Monday, February 6th. Or you can add someone playing on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday coming up, and then with the plan to, after that one game, drop the player for someone playing 4 times the next week. Of course, the risk is maybe the player that you'll be targeting for the 4 games in the following week, maybe that player will be taken in the meantime while you're waiting for your one measly game. So it's going to be a bit tricky. So I'm going to first focus on the teams with the most games, which is all going to be teams that don't play until Monday, February 6th. Like I said, so you're going to have to pick up this player and then wait a while. But I think there's a few that are going to be worth the wait. So like again, Anaheim and Seattle both play 4 times, no times in the next week, but then in the following week, they're both playing 4 times and not on the Saturday. So you're going to be able to get all 4 games for sure. Starting with Anaheim, they're playing actually right now while I'm recording this late on Saturday night, but not late enough to have seen the result of the Anaheim-Arizona game. But I can give you the line combos and the hot streaks going on. And the number one guy I'd look at in terms of players that will be available to you, and I'm just going to kind of use a threshold of like 45-ish% on Yahoo. And even those players I assume aren't going to be available to you. But I feel like if I go at 45%, I'll give you them my like kind of rankings of the players that I'm interested in. And so if there's a player I mention that isn't available, you could just kind of go down to next on the list. And on Anaheim, the guy that clearly jumps out to me as the player you want to add has got to be Adam Henrique, who's only 14% rostered on Yahoo. I mean, looking at the deployment, it looks like the Ducks, at least today versus Arizona, have gone back to just putting all their top players on the top line, Zegras, Terry, and Adam Henrique. So bad news for Mason McTavish, who was getting some exposure to Troy Terry, but great for Henrique. And then he's also on the top power play with Terry, Zegras, McTavish, and Cam Fowler. Also, if that's not enough, Henrique is not only getting good deployment, but he is producing. He has 9 points in his last 8 games going into today. He has scored in 2 straight versus Colorado and Arizona. So he's taking a lot of shots. So he's hot. He's got a great schedule. He's getting great deployment. That's the trifecta, right? So definitely, if you can grab Adam Henrique, I'm not going to try to get some Monday game from Winnipeg and then get him then. If Henrique's available to you, I think you've got to grab him now to get those 4 games. After that, the pickings get a little more slim. It's kind of hard at this point to ignore Cam Fowler. I know he's like done this before and then totally disappeared, but he is hot now. He's still on that top power play. He's been there the whole time. He had 2 assists versus Colorado in that surprise win back on Thursday. Today versus Arizona, it's only 1 period done, and he's already got 3 shots. So I'm liking the shots lately. He's not great for the hits and blocks, but hey, if he's going to give you shots and points, I think you got to take him. Like Anaheim has been scoring some goals lately, and watch him now get shut out by Arizona. They're currently losing 1-0. But yeah, Fowler is definitely interesting. Of course, you don't need to stream in a defenseman because all these 4 games are going to be on light days. But to be honest, he could be a hold. And also, I don't even know if he's going to outpoint Mason McTavish, who I guess would be your next best choice. Not on a great even strength line. Of course, that could change, but he at least is getting top power play deployment. So those would be the Anaheim guys. I guess you could, if you want to go deeper, like Frank Vetrano did have that hat trick a couple games ago versus Colorado and 8 shots. So if you want to keep on riding that wave, he also had a goal and assist in the game before that. So he's not getting great deployment, but he is riding a hot hand. So you could go with him as well. And then I guess there's Ryan Strome. But those would be the bottom of the barrel Anaheim options. I think once you're getting there, you might want to swap over to Seattle, where they also play 4 times. Also all on light days, and every forward on the team is less than 50% rostered on Yahoo. So you could basically take your pick. It's really hard to just recommend one. Seattle actually is also playing a game that isn't over right now. So I apologize. I record this late on purpose, but it's 11:30 here. What am I supposed to do? I got to go to bed at some point, right? And currently Seattle is up 2-0 over Columbus as I'm recording this. And I see that Eberle and McCann assisted on a goal from Alex Wemberg. And what do you know? Eberle and McCann would be 2 of the guys that have at the top of the list. Both, so McCann is 30% rostered, Jordan Eberle 20% rostered. I think both of them make for good ads. I know Eberle was a bit cold recently. He was actually dropped in my couple division, but I think that he is still top line, top power play. Like I think he's good enough that you're going to want to grab him if you can for this great schedule. I guess even ahead of those 2 guys would be like a Burakovsky and a Beniers. They're rostered in a lot of leagues. Beniers is currently injured, but hopefully he'll be able to be back after this long break. So if you get one of them, go get them. If not, then I would go with McCann or Eberle. And then if they're rostered, I guess you go down the list. Eeli Tolvanen just keeps doing well. He had goals in 2 straight games. Going into today, we'll see if he'll be able to make that 3 in a row. So he's interesting. And then I guess Daniel Sprong just continues to get meager points. And then actually Oliver Bjorkstrand. So it's really tricky. Grab a Seattle guy, okay? Also, Seattle plays against the Islanders, who haven't been that well. They have Sorokin, right? But they had been letting a bit of goals lately. That's not the greatest opponent. Then New Jersey, then the Rangers, and then Philly. So actually, all those teams are good. Carter Hart just had a shutout for Philly. So you know what? Those aren't even really great matchups. Let's see. Anaheim goes Dallas, Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Vegas. Oh man, if Casey DeSmith is still playing for Pittsburgh, that could be tasty. And Chicago should be good. So yeah, I guess I'd prefer Anaheim for the matchups there. But yeah, so those are your options over on Seattle. Yeah, those would be the teams I would say that have the 2 clear best schedules. Next up, there's a bunch of teams that play 4 times. Again, none of these teams that I'm about to say play in that first stretch. They all play. I'll stop repeating myself. I just want to make it clear. Any of these teams, if you're going to add a player from that team, you're waiting a while. So you have to really decide if it's worth it. Because if it's not worth it, maybe you want to stream in one of the players from a team like Columbus or Toronto or Montreal or Washington. There's a few of them that are playing during that first stretch, and you'll drop for one of these other guys. So that's kind of up to you to decide. But I'd say the next 2 best schedules are the Islanders and Tampa. They both play 4 games. Only 3 of them because one of them's on the Saturday, but at least those 3 light games all come by Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So you'll be able to get those 3 games, and then you could always reassess and drop for a Friday guy or a Saturday guy or Sunday, whatever. So if I'm going to get 4 games, 3 light, I'd rather get those 3 light games as early as possible. On the Islanders, they've got someone who's really emerging as someone that I'm going to have to recommend as one of my top streamers, which has got to be Kyle Palmieri, because he's been on fire since coming back from his injury. He's been playing on a line with Brock Nelson and Anders Lee, and the 3 of them are basically accounting for all of the Islanders' goals. And Palmieri now has 5 assists in the 4 games since he's come back. So I know you're thinking, what year is this? Why are you still recommending Kyle Palmieri? But look, he's on a good line. He's on a hot streak. It's kind of like with Adam Henrique, right? How can I not recommend Kyle Palmieri at this point? Plus, he starts the week on Monday, Tuesday, after waiting a week, like I said, because it's that 2-week matchup. But yeah, I think that you probably want to take a look against Philly and Seattle. So not the hardest matchups, maybe. Those teams could be decent in net. But yeah, so that would be my clear top pick on the Islanders. You could fit a D potentially. Maybe you want to take a look at Ryan Pulock. Noah Dobson is banged up, but even if he's back, I know Pulock stinks. He's not a hold at this point, but I don't know. He had an assist a couple games ago. I guess, man, it's really disappointing how Pulak's gone from like, being a guy you could at least depend on for some shots and blocks to now I'm seeing like he's only had 1 or 2 shots and 1 or 2 blocks in each of his last few games. So maybe this is more of a hunch pick. Like because I just can't think of anyone else in the Islanders I'm going to recommend, right? Like obviously Matt Barzal is taken, and then Brock Nelson is taken, and Andres Lee I assume is taken, and after that, yeah, I'm liking Palmieri, and then I don't know, who am I supposed to recommend here? Beauvillier, like Pajot. I don't know. So I'm going to say Pulak if you want to take someone from Tampa. Man, they're a really hard team to stream from. They've had the same lines forever, though. Actually, today they went back to Kucherov, Stamkos, and Point all on the same line for their win over LA, which is not great news for Brandon Hagel if that holds, but who knows if it will. But that's also even worse news, I would say, because at least Hagel's on the top power play. It's even worse news for those guys that were on the second line getting exposure to Stamkos. Now, your Sorellis and your Killorns go down in value. Killorn has been on a bit of a hot streak. Didn't get a point today. Actually, he hasn't even been on that much of a hot streak. He was, but now he's already down to like 1 point in his last 4 games. So probably you can just forget about any streamer on Tampa, to be honest. So I guess next you can go to the teams with the next best schedules. Still some 4 games played teams with 3 light days. And we're going to have 3 light day games by Friday. So not as good as having them by Thursday, but at least you'll have them by Friday. And those are the Minnesota Wild, the Rangers, and the Canucks. So if you're going to want to stream a player from one of those teams, you're going to get your 3 games by Friday. And then, the 4th game is on Saturday. You probably won't have room on that busy Saturday. But at that point, you've gotten 3. You drop the player, maybe for a Sunday guy. Okay? So Minnesota, there's not really anyone to stream. It's been the same lines forever. Sam Steele's still on the top line, but he's super cold, which actually makes him like pretty nice in terms of like he's probably been dropped now in a lot of leagues, which is now your opportunity to grab him. And anytime you're playing with Zuccarello and Kaprizov, I know he's cold now, but doesn't mean he'll be cold forever. So he might actually be a pretty good stream to get those games from Minnesota. They play Arizona, Dallas, and Vegas. So not the best, not the worst matchups. Then on the Rangers, Philip Hedl is red hot. So he has 4 goals and 1 assist in his last 3 games. He's been playing on the kid line with Lafreniere and Kakko. So I would definitely take him first and maybe Lafreniere, but I don't know. He's burned me anytime I've taken him. But he had a 3-game point streak before getting no points, but 3 shots versus Vegas on Saturday. On Vancouver, I mean, Brock Besser's 43% rostered. So some of you probably have Besser available. He's been playing with Bo Horvat lately with a good schedule. I think now's a good time to grab Brock Besser. And then for players in leagues where they're a bit deeper, maybe Connor Garland. He had a 3-game point streak playing with JT Miller recently. Obviously, the lines can change. Ilya Mikheyev has just been announced to be out for the season. So maybe there'll be some shakeups. So there's a new coach in Rick Tocchet. So who knows? But if Garland is still playing with JT Miller and he's available, he's someone you could stream in. Okay, the remaining 4 games played teams with 3 light days. Well, it'll always be 3 light days because there's only 1 busy day in the whole 2-week matchup, right, on the Saturday, right? So the other ones, but then those last games will be on Sunday. So you're only going to get 2 games, then Saturday, then Sunday. They're Edmonton and Philly. Edmonton, there's no one to stream like usual. Like you could take a shot on someone. Also, just looking at the percent rostered on Edmonton, I don't know why Evan Bouchard is 52% rostered. That's crazy. He's been doing nothing like forever. Philly, they always have someone interesting, right? Owen Tippett, only 7% rostered. He had a goal and assist versus Winnipeg today, playing with Kevin Hayes and Scott Lawton. And Scott Lawton also, he's rostered in more leagues. I think I'd probably take Owen Tippett over Scott Lawton for what it's worth. But if you could get either of them, and then there's like guys like Noah Cates and Philly, there's some interesting players that you can look at. Actually, on defense, if you need D, Rasmus Ristolainen is a name that's starting to show up on the score sheet more and more lately. So maybe it's about time that people should be taking notice, and especially on a week where you can have a good schedule. If there's 3 light days, but like a lot of people like myself, like maybe you don't have so many defensemen on your team, so you can't even fit a defenseman on the Saturday. In that case, Risto has points in 3 straight games. He had 2 assists in the win over Winnipeg today. He's always solid for the peripherals, the hits and blocks. So he could be a really good defensive streamer. I would take him over Pulak, definitely, especially if you can fit all 4 of those games. And then I guess there's one more team with 3 light days. They only play 3 games, so that's fine because the Saturday you're probably busy anyways. And that's San Jose. And with San Jose, it's tricky, right? Like Barabanov has always been my guy, low percent roster. That was in a good spot. He was ice cold, but hey, he did have a big breakout game today versus Casey DeSmith and the Penguins. 1 goal and 2 assists. He's still on the top power play. Noah Gregor was playing on the top line with Hurdle and Meyer. I doubt that'll last. So I wouldn't be playing the game of trying to pick that top liner. So if you're going to grab someone from the Sharks, just go with Barabanov. At least you get the power play exposure. Okay, so those are the teams that play 4 times next week. And I should say again in 2 weeks. Kind of tricky to say this. As far as next week goes, there are some teams playing. And so, like I said, you may want to go with the strategy of grabbing a player from one of those teams to start, get the game, and then swap over to get the 4 games, and you get 5 games. You could do the math, right? Okay, so the team with the best schedule in that case is Carolina. They play Tuesday, Wednesday. Then they don't play again all the way until the following Saturday, but at least you get 2 games. That's the only team that plays 2 times. As far as streamers from Carolina, it's like not that easy, to be honest, to pick one because they've been generally riding a top line lately of Aho, Teravainen, and Seth Jarvis. And so you may think, okay, go grab Seth Jarvis, but he's been super cold. So I don't know. He's pointless in his last 3. Then he had an assist versus Minnesota, and then like pointless in the previous 2. So he takes some shots. So I don't know, like, it's a good spot, right? So if he's available and you can get those 2 games, it's probably worth it to just go get Seth Jarvis. But no promises from me on whether he's actually going to get a point for you or not. But I know, I guess you probably want to hear some other names then, because also Seth Jarvis is still rostered in a decent number of leagues. He's rostered in 27% of leagues. So if we're going even lower, I mean, Brett Pesce continues to get points. Sometimes he had 2 assists in that game versus Dallas, but overall he's kind of slowed down. And then you've got like, I don't know, I guess you probably want someone playing with Svechnikov, right? I guess if you can't get someone playing with Aho. And so the latest to be playing with Svechnikov is Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Martin Necas. So obviously Necas won't be available to you. But yeah, so I guess Kotkaniemi is going to be my default next. Or I guess you could go Stefan Nason, who's been getting top power play. So who do I pick? I don't know. Neither, but I'm not too excited about any of these Carolina options. But probably if you want to roll the dice, go with Kotkaniemi or Stefan Nason, and honestly flip a coin for that one. I think I use 2 randomness analogies there. Okay, so next up, there's some teams playing only 1 time in the first week, but at least they also play on the second week, and not only on Saturday, but at least another game. So those teams are Columbus, Toronto, Montreal, and Washington. So I don't know, but I still don't think I would grab that player and hold a player from that team all the way until the following week, all the way until the Friday or the Saturday or the Sunday when they play. So, you know, I think still these would be teams where you would just like grab a player for the one game and then move on. But yeah, if you want to take a player from one of those teams, you'll probably have some good streamers like Columbus. At this point, we have to talk about Kirill Marchenko, who is really hot lately. He scored 2 goals versus Vancouver in the 5-2 loss. And before that, he scored against Edmonton. Before that, he scored against Calgary. He's currently still playing in this game against Seattle and no points yet. But Marchenko is definitely someone that's starting to make me take notice as someone you might want to stream in. He has been playing currently in today's game on a line with Gaudreau and Jenner. So they've split up Gaudreau and Line A. Obviously, they've been switching up the lines forever, right? You've already heard the saga of last weekend when Brian and I talked about Jack Roslovic on the top line, and then he was quickly bumped, and now he's back actually playing with Line A and Kent Johnson. So who knows? So Marchenko could not last there for long, but for now he's also been on the top power play, which is pretty exciting. They've actually been going with 5 forwards, Jenner, Gaudreau, Line A, Marchenko, and Kent Johnson for at least their one power play in today's game versus Seattle. So Marchenko definitely a little bit interesting there. And then aside from him, you could go Jack Roslovic. I'm not going to recommend him again, that's for sure. Kent Johnson with Nyquist out. I guess those are your 3 options that I guess you can look at over on Columbus. In Toronto, Alex Kerfoot is lately been centering the second line in practice. With Matthews injured, they tried something else in the last game, didn't work. They got blown out by the Senators, so I guess Toronto's going to go with Kerfoot there. So you get your Kerfoot or your Yarncroc playing with Nylander, so maybe that can work. Actually, in Toronto, by the way, is one of the teams that play on Sunday. When I say Sunday, I mean like tomorrow or today. Actually, when you're listening to this, so if you need a Sunday savior, you can grab a Leafs player, get the game today, and then also get the game versus Boston next Wednesday, and then do a drop. So if you're going to add a Kerfoot or a Yarncroc, that would be the plan there. I guess you would hold at that point, and hopefully that'll also help you win your matchup that you're currently in. Then what do we have here? Montreal and Washington. Washington, by the way, is another team that plays on the Sunday. There's only 2 games actually coming up tomorrow, and that's Toronto versus Washington and Boston versus the Carolina Hurricanes. So actually with the Hurricanes also, I should have mentioned that if you grab your Hurricanes player, you're going to get the game on Sunday and those games on Tuesday and Wednesday. So take that for what you will. You know what? Actually, I'm going to get back in just a sec to talk about those Sunday games and finish up these potential streams for next week. But let's just take a quick break. You're listening to the Matchup Maximizer. All right, we are back. So like I was saying, I was telling you the teams that only play one time between Monday and Wednesday before they go on a long break, either till Friday or Saturday of the following week. I talked about some Columbus guys. I told you about Toronto. With Montreal, they play, one game, and then that game is against Ottawa, and they just got shut out by Ottawa today, so I don't know if that makes you excited to stream a Montreal person. And then after that, they don't play again until Saturday of the following week. So I'm just going to say right now, drop your Montreal person if you like. Pretty much the only person on Montreal that's maybe worth holding. I don't even know. Like, obviously Nick Suzuki, I guess you have to hold, even though he's been super cold, and I wouldn't even blame you if you decide to drop him. Mike Matheson has been on the top power play as a defenseman, so maybe if D is hard to come by, you hold him. Everyone else you drop, and I'm not even going to recommend anyone. And then, I mentioned Washington, who also plays this Sunday. So if you want to get your Sunday savior and also one game next week before you drop for someone playing 4 times, Washington plays Columbus on Tuesday after playing Toronto today. And on Washington, there's going to be a few options potentially available for you. And they've been like swapping out their lines a little bit, but we did see some line combinations in practice today, which saw Ovechkin being centered by Dylan Strome and TJ Oshie, Kuznetsov with Connor Sherry and Mantha, and then Backstrom with Milano and Marcus Johansson. So I think we're getting to a point soon where Nicholas Backstrom might be a drop, but I guess you hold him if you need him for Sunday, and then you can hold him through, like I said, Tuesday, and then probably at that point you're going to drop. But in the meantime, as far as your Sunday saviors that you're going to potentially add, you can get yourself Dylan Strome, who's playing on the top line. He's only rostered in 23% of leagues if he's not available. I mean, actually, my top pick would definitely be TJ Oshie, because he's not only on that top line, but also he's been playing on the top power play and only 24% rostered. So he's a clear add if you need someone for Sunday, and then hold him for that Tuesday, and then maybe you continue to hold. He's like not that bad. He's not that amazing, but he's not that bad. He's usually rostered in most of the leagues that I'm in. And then I guess Connor Sherry would be the next pick, who's been pretty cold lately, but he is playing with Kuznetsov, which is something. Though I'd rather Kuznetsov be playing with Ovechkin. I have Kuznetsov in one league. It's kind of frustrating, but Sherry had 3 shots in his last game and 5 shots in the previous game. So I guess Strome, Oshie, and Sherry. Okay, my order would be Oshie, Strome, Sherry as my potential 3 ads from Washington there. And I guess Marcus Johansson has been getting some top power play time, has actually been decent lately. So he'd be, you know what? Maybe I'd even take Johansson over Connor Sherry at this point. It's really tough. Flip a coin. Okay. Then there are still a few more teams that play one time these next 3 days. So again, it could be tempting to just stream someone in for that one game. So those teams are Ottawa, Boston, Buffalo, LA, St. Louis, and Winnipeg. I think Ottawa is the most tempting because they're going to play Montreal again, and we just saw what they did against Montreal. Ridley Gregg has still been playing on that second line with Giroux, and Claude Giroux is on fire right now, so he would be an interesting one to stream in for that game versus Montreal. Jake Sanderson continues to be hot, so you could grab him, and who knows, he might end up being someone you decide to hold. As far as those other teams, Boston is another one who also, like I said, has this game today, so you can get their game versus Carolina and then also hold for the next game, which you'll get versus Toronto on Wednesday before making your drop. Of course, Boston is tricky unless you have one of the following available, which are the people playing with David Pastrnak, right? So if you could get Zacha, or if you can get Krejci, that would be amazing. And then Taylor Hall's been on the top line, so obviously if you can get him, go for that. But aside from that, a lot of these guys might be taken. So probably Zacha is the most likely to be available to you. And yeah, definitely stream him in for the Sunday game if you need him, and then hold through Wednesday. And then that might be a tough call of whether to hold or whether to drop, because after that, Boston's not going to play again until the following Saturday, and you probably won't have room for him. Buffalo, LA, St. Louis, Winnipeg were the others. Yeah, I'll tell you my current situation, which is I have Victor Arvidsson. I'm in a close matchup. So I am probably going to be dropping Victor Arvidsson today for a Sunday savior. He hasn't even been that good lately, so he's probably dropping. And he's playing on Tuesday against Carolina, so the decent chance that he doesn't even get a point because Carolina is a really tough opponent. So that is my current plan. But okay, speaking of the Sunday Savior, let's get into that, and then we'll wrap up the show. But hopefully I've given you something to think about in terms of what you're going to do for next week. There's a few strategies, like I said, that you can go after. Probably if you're in a competitive league, like the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, I'd recommend just grabbing your like Anaheim or Seattle guy right away, because if you try to grab, like I said, Ridley Gregg to get that game on Tuesday, there's a good chance you're going to miss out on a lot of good streamers in the meantime. And by Wednesday morning, your options will be slim, but it might be a risk worth taking depending on the league you're in. But let's swap over now to Sunday, today, and let's take a look at who you could stream into it. And I think we've already talked about all these teams. Like I said, Boston versus Carolina. So yeah, we talked about how you might want to get like a Zaka if you can. And in Carolina, I told you that I had sort of shrugged my shoulders. It's hard to say. I guess that's Jarvis, even though he's cold. And then Washington at Toronto. I guess I've told you there too already. So this is pretty easy. Oshie, Strome, Sherry could be good from Washington. Oh, you know who I didn't mention on Washington? Dmitry Orlov. If he's available in, I guess, well, I'll tell you what, he's rostered in 24% of leagues. I was about to do the math right. 76, that means that he's available. I can do this. Orlov is on a hot streak right now. It looks like he's starting to take some of that power play time from Eric Gustafsson. He's great for the peripherals. So he's actually someone that I would take a look. He'd probably be my first Sunday Savior stream if you can get someone like ahead of a Strome, Oshie, or Connor Sherry. Maybe I would just go with the sure thing with the peripherals in Dmitry Orlov. But no, I'd probably take Oshie ahead of him, actually, just because, like I said, top line, top power play. And then, yeah, Toronto, I mentioned you could get a Kerfoot or a Yarncroc. Kerfoot, by the way, has assists in 2 straight games, and now he's going to be playing with Nylander. So Nylander is very good. So definitely a very good chance that Kerfoot assists on a Nylander goal come this Sunday versus Washington, which is today. I'll get these dates all sorted out, okay? I'm still new. What is this, like the 3rd, 4th matchup maximizer? I normally do podcasts with a friend, and I get a chance to take a break. But I didn't take a break today. I'd love to know what you thought of this show. Hopefully it was helpful to you. Tweet at Keeping Karlsson. Let us know your thoughts. And very good luck to you for your upcoming 2-week matchup. Like I said, conserve those ads. Don't just like make them all right away, assuming that you know who you want, and it's fine because you might have those injuries, right? So at least save 1 or 2 to be able to handle the case where someone comes out of the All-Star break with a lingering issue and they decide to sit out for a game or 2 after that, or just gets hurt in one of the games. But yeah, that's it for me. Next up, you're going to have a really fun show, I assume, that I'm going to be recording tonight on Sunday, the 29th, with Michael Amato from Goalie Post and Sportsnet. So a real knowledgeable fantasy person. He has a great Twitter presence where he's tweeting lots of hot takes. I'm going to ask him about a lot of his observations on the show, and obviously all the news and notes. Is going to be a mega show with myself and Michael Amato. Brian is taking a break because he's got a lot of work to do. Got a busy day job right now. And then you're going to have a couple of short shifts episodes coming up. So make sure you're subscribed to Keeping Karlsson to get all the goods. This show, mega show, short shifts. We're never stopping, right? There's an all-star break. We Keeping Karlsson, we don't take a break. We just keep producing content to try to make sure you're going to be successful in your fantasy leagues. So with that, I am done. Good luck finishing off your matchups with some success on Sunday and on that 2-week matchup. And I think I'm going to have a special episode for you next week because I've already talked about the next couple of weeks, right? So when I come back next Sunday, I'm not going to have anything new to say. I'll mention if there's some new players that are interesting me after, whatever games we've seen or whatever news comes out. But after that, I think I might have an idea that I've talked to with Jeremy that I guess I'll keep it a secret for now. But it's going to be a good show. And it's going to be useful for those of you who are expecting to make it to your fantasy playoffs. Maybe that gives it away. But so stay tuned for that in a week. But there's a lot of shows coming to you before that. Thanks again. Good luck. See ya.